Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Danny Matranga, thank you for finally accepting my invite to get you back on the podcast. It's been way too long. I know you've been busy. Now you're a dad for the first time. Congratulations. On top of your certified strength and conditioning coach designation, Bachelor of Science, and, well, you've been really successful in the coaching space as a whole. So great to have you back.
Dude, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to chat shop. It's been a long time since I've talked to a coach who wasn't one of the coaches in my gym. So I'm thrilled to be here, dude.
One of my favorite parts about these podcasts, and then we get everybody else to just tag along for a conversation. So I've built some fun stuff on your social media. So I'm going to riff on some quotes, and I want you just to take your mindset and run with it.
Yes.
So quote, I say this with kindness. You do not have the skills to eyeball your calorie intake. They studied this multiple times. Let regular adults guess how many calories they eat, and they underreport by 47%, end quote. What's going on?
So yeah, that data comes from a study by Lichtman from like the late 90s. And they've replicated studies like this where ostensibly they take adults, they put them in what's called a metabolic ward, a tight environment where they can closely observe what they eat. And they ask them, hey, how many calories do you think you ate in the last 24 hours? Untrained adults underreport by 47%, meaning if they say they ate 1,000, they really ate almost 1,500. And even dietitians, trained professionals, underreport. This has also been shown in the research. And so my riff there, my point there, trying to be as kind and empathetic as possible. It's like, frankly, we are all guilty of poor reporting or maybe even generous reporting on certain parts of our lives that we grade ourselves on. Like, hey, I'm pretty good at doing the dishes. Your wife might disagree. Hey, I'm pretty good at, putting my weights away. I don't know. The gym owner might disagree. But 99% of people who think they are good at tracking their calories are not. And we know this because it's just, again, been studied and shown over and over again. And I would just rather be honest with people and say, hey, let's just all assume that we're bad at this, because it frankly takes a lot of tracking, a lot of time, a lot of skill to get good. And if we assume that we aren't an outlier, we'll be way more likely to be successful. Let's be honest here. We're generally bad at accounting for calories as a species. And if I can accept that that's true, maybe I can relieve myself of like some of the guilt about overeating. I can embrace tracking as a way of working with where we all struggle. I don't know. I felt like that was actually a good way to humanize the struggles many of us have with gauging what we're eating if we eyeball it, which you would probably agree is a pretty poor strategy.
This episode is brought to you by Renaissance Periodization and the RP Hypertrophy app. RP is the industry leader in muscle building, coaching, and education. This app is like having a coach in your pocket. It gives you everything you need, including training programs, form videos. It gives you all your sets, reps, and weights, so you just show up and follow the plan. It adjusts each week based off your progress. And the app was created by Dr. Mike Israetel, Nick Shaw, and the team at RP, who I've known for many years. And the entire team are incredible people who've always been supportive and generous with me, so I know their character and are easy to endorse. My library contains several RP books, and I've used RP training principles in my workouts and coaching with my clients for many years, long before the explosion in popularity of their YouTube channel, which is worth checking out. RP is the first sponsor I felt remotely comfortable endorsing after over 7 years of podcasting. And if hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to maximize your gains and take the guesswork out of your program. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. If you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got a serious discount for you of up to $50 US. Go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. And that's rpstrength.com/coats. Use the code COATSRP. The way I look at it is, and this is very aligned with what you're saying, is if we can get people to accept the fact that there's built-in error, and like you said, it alleviates the guilt and the shame. It's like, it's systemic. Then we can also get people to walk off the ledge of that emotional reaction to certain numbers, right? We always hear about the 1,200 calories, which there's a quote that we'll get into later about that. So I'm going to swing back to this. There's a viral video, I think recently, and I swear Jordan Syatt
took it. I've seen some other people take it, where there's this woman, and if I remember correctly, she's claiming that she's consuming about 1,000 calories a day and she can't lose weight. So they watched her, and this is a singular anecdote.
Oh,
And they
wow.
added up what she was eating, and she ended up eating about 3,000 calories a day. Now, again, that's an extreme statistic based on, like, it's not part of the study you cited, but let's look at the study. That study would be the average of the participants, the 47%. They're not all 47%. Some of them would have been lower, but some of them would have probably been the
Much
edges of the bell curve, and they may have been, quote, 3 times their expected calorie intake.
And I think those are the people who typically say things like, I'm eating 1,200 calories a day and I'm, 240 pounds. And it's like, that's so strange because for an NFL linebacker to maintain 240 pounds of lean mass, they need to eat like 4,000 calories. And, like something here doesn't line up. Like a 200-pound adult, no matter how sedentary they are, certainly couldn't maintain that weight on your reported calorie intake. And so the alarms start to go off and you ask the question, is it possible that there's error here? And one thing that I struggle with a lot as a coach, especially as somebody who's naturally more empathetic and I want to build, I don't know, I just want people to believe in themselves. I don't want them to think I'm out to get them. So it's always hard to be like, hey, is there maybe a chance in your dieting history that you've underreported what you ate? People feel almost like, are you like accusing me of not trying or not counting accurately? And in a way I am, but also I want to normalize the fact that unless you have structure and routine and discipline around tracking, you're probably making an error because we all do. And it shows up time and time again in the research. And if you're somebody who makes really frequent errors or large errors in your calorie tracking, even a small amount of structure can make a huge difference. So for this woman who's, says she only eats 1,000 and she ends up, eating 3,000, if she had a very simple goal of eating 100 grams of protein a day and 30 grams of fiber, she probably couldn't eat 3,000 calories if she tried. There's ways around it. You don't have to just track calories, but you have to track something.
This episode is brought to you by KNKG, my favorite gym bag brand, and now my favorite backpack for travel. I used to travel like an amateur and check a suitcase. This meant hassle checking in, waiting for luggage, and stress over whether my bag would make it to my destination with me. Even my roller carry-on didn't allow for versatility once I got to my destination. And I travel more than ever and I need quality, durability, and convenience. And when I met up with friends at fitness conferences, I noticed many travel just with a backpack. So I started researching backpacks and brands, and I kept coming back to KNKG because I've had one of their duffel bags for years. So I bought their Edge backpack, and it goes everywhere with me. And my KNKG backpacks, plural, now I have 2 of them, the Edge and the Conquer backpack, double as perfect travel bags for a week of travel or everyday gym use. And I can save you 15% on yours. Go to www.knkg.com/Andrew 59676. That's www.knkg.com/Andrew 59676, or go to the link in the show notes.
So elaborate, because you pretty much laid it out there of one of the better ways to approach this without necessarily tracking every calorie. What are some of your favorite ways?
I mean, most coaches are keen to this, but I think this strategy is largely fairly true. And that's like, people ask me all the time, is it good enough to track my macros, or do I also need to track my calories? And I say all the time, well, technically, when you're tracking your macros, you're tracking your calories pretty darn close. I mean, fiber and some maybe small rounding errors, you might be off by a few calories, whatever. But if you're tracking macros, you are tracking calories. So what macros matter most for most people's goals? And for like fat loss clients, which are most clients that I have, for general population adults who want to manage their weight, I actually think the most important macros are protein and fiber. And then like the meta umbrella is calories. So I would just say, hit your protein target, hit your fiber target. Those are your satiety pillars. They're also phenomenal for your health. And don't overeat this many calories. So like you have a goal, 100 grams of protein, 30 grams of fiber. Don't eat more than 1,800 calories. Get your carbs and fats and whatever ratio works for you on that given day, but don't overeat. I think that might work better for some people than having them track protein, carbs, and fats. But I also know people who want to track all the macros because that's the personality type they have. But I like to simplify.
I think it's practical. Now, I mentioned, well, I'll do this quote. Quote, nobody has a harder time losing weight than short, sedentary women. It's not impossible, but these are there are cases where you hear about people needing to go super low calories. End quote.
Yeah. So with that one, this is again speaking predominantly from experience, but also I think the physics and the math is going to back me up here. I've worked with a lot of older women who are shorter and quite sedentary and like tick all of those kind of boxes for frustrating, stubborn fat loss. I'm shorter, I don't move a lot, and I'm getting older, and I'm a woman. And I've noticed, and Andrew, you're like the opposite of all of these things. You're very large, very muscular, and very much not a woman. And so I think like for you, and you're very active in your day-to-day workday, for you, losing body fat would probably be easier than a very small woman who sits all day. And a lot of that just has to do with the pure real estate, the pure amount of calories it takes to burn, that it takes to run the body that you have. You obviously burn more calories than I do. And here's what's so cool. We both train clients on the gym. We both work out with weights several days a week. We're both young enough and metabolically healthy, but what is the differentiating factor? Well, you're about a foot taller than me and probably 100 pounds bigger. And that probably means you burn a lot more calories. And so small women, unfortunately, suffer from being like metabolically smaller systems. And so there are people, and again, I would never recommend this for anyone. I'm not saying go do this, but there are people for whom 1,200 calories is actually going to be a deficit that might not kill them. Maybe their maintenance is like 1,400 calories because they're 4'11" and they sit all day. And for a normal active adult, you say, hey, 1,200 calories, that is reckless. But for some of these small women, you do see very low calories being required. Additionally, I've noticed these are a lot of times the clients of mine who are the most responsive to weight loss medication, because just going back to the margin for error, if your deficit is 1,500 calories or less, that is such a tightrope to walk every damn day. That is so hard. I could never do that. I don't think I could. Like maybe for like a week, I could try to get by on 1,500 calories, but the margin for error is really low for these people, and they respond extremely well to weight loss medication because those, of course, really reduce dieting error margin. It nukes your appetite. And so I would say that nobody struggles more than small women. It doesn't mean it's impossible. I also would say nobody probably works harder. Nobody probably works more like frustratedly against the big stone wheel that is all of our fitness. But and I'm empathetic to it because that's a lot of who I work with are older women who are on the smaller side. And it's just, I got to really crunch the calories down.
Two quick thoughts. One is I sometimes have meals that are 1,500 calories. Just for context,
no doubt,
right?
No doubt.
But I've talked about this in a fair number of different places in media. Podcasts are the best place for the nuance here. We're all marketed the same food, the same portions. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, to a point, smaller people tend to eat less. On average, they do. But if you go to a restaurant, I get the same serving size as a woman who is 5 feet tall and 110 pounds, right? Usually. I have definitely known, it's not all, but I've definitely known plenty of women, socially, who will drink alcohol in alignment with what larger men will drink. Even if we scale it back and we get the imagery of like Sex in the City and the martini lunch or a couple glasses of wine, or this one's really like rough territory and you have a very strong voice about alcohol and the issues with it. Let's say you have a woman, because men, they have their beer, that's the whole thing. But let's say the smaller woman, smaller metabolic capacity, daily output, less muscle mass. And let's say, she, after a stressful day at work, decides, well, they need to have a glass of wine or two, right? Again, we now have even that eats up. If the goal is, hey, no, I want to live in, let's say we're not even talking about fat loss. Let's say if we're talking about even maintenance level calories. So that person wants to maintain their current lean muscle mass. They're not super active, but yet they feel, and here's the danger, and it's a tricky word, entitled.
Yeah.
Entitled to have, because of marketing, because of what we see on, and I say Sex and the City because Sex and the City is a metaphor for a false reality.
Sure. I mean, I get the cultural meme that is Sex and the City in completely when you say it.
I'll even side quest a bit. There's an article that documents the apartments from famous shows set in New York as where that they live. Like the Friends apartment is one of the silly outliers. Like these people with their careers could never afford this apartment of that size at that location. So it kind of documents this and what their careers are. And Carrie's Sex and the City apartment's also one of the ones that's just complete pure fantasy, right? It's not even realistic, even when the show was made. So if you're getting this portrayal of the lunches, the meals, the alcohol consumption in some of these shows, these aren't reflected in the reality of a real person, a smaller woman. And it's an unfortunate, unpleasant truth, but kind of like what we were talking about before, which is the fact that everybody misestimates how much calories are consuming. You got to get really comfortable with these stone cold facts. If the goal is, hey, I want to maintain my body fat percentage and I want to maintain my metabolic health as I get older, right? This is not advocating for to be as thin as Carrie Bradshaw is, Sarah Jessica Parker in the show, right? Maybe that's your goal. I don't know. But this is an unpleasant truth.
Yeah. Like if you consume alcohol the way the women do in that show, a way that would be considered normal, you'll probably increase your cancer risk like tenfold. Because it's like an average sized woman can consume about 1 serving of alcohol per day without elevating cancer risk. That's considered a moderate dose, but that's like a 5-ounce glass of wine. And most people do not pour a 5-ounce glass of wine. And the minute that same woman goes from 1 glass to 2, she's now going 2x the, safe amount. And I know a lot of women who probably consume 10 to 15% of their total daily calories from alcoholic beverages, and then another 10 to 15% from like sweetened coffee beverages. And I think that it's really hard to maintain satiety and health in a smaller metabolic system when you have too many calories and too much alcohol. And frankly, we fight all the time looking for individual ingredients. I'm not a fan of demonizing anything, but alcohol really does stand out to me as a commonly consumed thing that a lot of adults overindulge with. If you can keep it moderate, it's probably better. But I do think that's really become so popular in fitness recently, actually, to the point where as somebody who like loved talking about it a couple years ago and over the years, and I'm still really passionate about it, I'm more careful now not to over demonize it, because I do respect that I can't change people. Not everybody's going to want to be sober. I don't want to be sober. I just don't like drinking. And the thing is, man, like I hate when people comment on like a post I make about alcohol. Well, still going to have my beer. And I'm like, dude, that's totally cool. I just want you to have no more than 2. Like, I just want to broker with people on the stone cold facts. Like there's a lot of data that shows we can consume this stuff in moderation. And same thing with calories. Like, let's just be honest. The data says we can't fucking count. The data says if we drink too much alcohol, we're cooked. Like those are pretty easy to follow, guys. Let's just, stick to the most basic and pressing and obvious and helpful things. But convincing people to do that is more difficult than I'd ever possibly have imagined. But it's the undertaking of my life, and I'm passionate about it, but it's always a dance.
Hopefully we don't get yelled at as 2 guys talking about women and their nutrition and, drinking alcohol. We could say this, like, again, it's relative to the size of the human and the metabolic rate of the person. There are smaller men, there are women who have more muscle. It's all relative. And I mean, we also have a society of men walking around who are massively over fat
Yeah,
So, I mean,
totally.
they're just consuming calories, and maybe it's alcohol is part of that, disproportionate to their needs as well. So all this stuff scales up and down. It's just that once you squeeze it down into the smallest humans, you don't have, there's not a lot of food in 1,200, 1,300 calories. There can be if you eat filling food, but this emotional perception that, oh my God, 1,200 is restrictive, which is also another thing. You referenced it. For most people, it's not a sensible number, but whenever I hear someone's crying blanketly about the number 1,200 calories, here's a fact. There are people walking around in our society where their metabolic maintenance is 1,200 calories. There's
Yeah.
nothing inherently evil about that number. It might actually be the right amount for you if you are small enough and inactive enough. Now, one of the other things that at least we can move the needle a bit is, let's get you way more active. We can. Let's get you walking more. Let's get you moving more, exercising more, whatever. That will drive up maintenance calories to a point.
Yeah. I think a way to look at it is like there are some people for whom 1,200 calories or less is required to lose weight, but there's probably no healthy adult whose calorie maintenance is 1,200 calories or lower. Like, if that is the case, we need to quickly get you on a movement program. Like, if you are that sedentary, if you're that small, that undermuscled, and that sedentary, that formulas tell us, like, dude, I guess we're going to have to really crunch the calories. What do we have to do to get you moving more? Because that's just too little food to operate with. And yeah, just to close up that loop and not upset anyone, most small people on the most, teeny tiny end of the bell curve are women. It's just a human biological truth. Like the average, I bet you 99% of adults under 5'1" who do not suffer from dwarfism are probably female. 90, 95 plus. And so that's who I'm talking about with these numbers. There are just people who are very short. They're a smaller person and they have to walk this dieting tightrope. And when they are successful, I think it's unbelievably impressive, substantially more impressive than me losing weight and getting shredded. And I actually would give any of those women like tremendous kudos and like double fist bumps, because I think it is hard. And I do think that many men do a disservice to these women by just being like, well, just got to eat less calories, because that's always true. But it's like, yeah, it's also really shitty when you're like, have the tightest calorie line anyway. It just feels like a slap in the face to those people. So I just, you got to be real, but it is harder for smaller people.
And to drive the point home again, if we have larger men becoming progressively more obese, then it definitely is unfair in the modern world. But guess what? Unfair, you can pout, complain, be mad about all you want. If you actually don't do something to deal with it, then we cannot defy the thermodynamics of the calories inside of that equation. More practical from this, quote, you need to be at a calorie deficit to lose weight. Okay, yes, we know that. You do not need to eat as little as possible to lose weight. A modest calorie deficit, 10 to 15% fewer than you need, built from a diet of primarily fruits, vegetables, lean protein, will outperform starving yourself daily. Okay. Hunger is something to be managed, not provoked. This is why all successful diets are built off mostly whole filling foods. Explain.
So I think you really hit on this earlier briefly when you brought up the idea of like volumetric eating. So 1,200 calories isn't a lot of food unless, well, some people can make it a lot of food. It's like the people who can make 1,200 calories a lot of food are people who eat fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, the kinds of foods that are high in nutrients, vitamins, minerals, that supply your body with macronutrients you need, like protein and carbohydrate and healthy fat. But they're usually not full of added sugars or added fats. These are almost never processed and packaged foods. Processed and packaged foods, of course, are very energy dense. They're loaded with added sugars and added fats to bump up satiety and textural palatability. And they basically reward the shit out of you while never filling you. And that's how you can make 1,200 calories disappear. A bowl of cereal is like teeny tiny when you actually weigh out a serving. And you're like, oh my God, I've been eating 5 servings of cereal. Holy crap. It's like 600 calories a bowl and I'm not even hungry. That happens all the time. So these people anyone who's successful with weight loss is successful at managing their hunger. Because I believe principally the number one reason we struggle with weight loss, we get hungry. and we fucking say, hey, I'm surrounded by all of this seductive food that is literally calling me everywhere I fucking go. I can't get away from this shit. It is everywhere I go. I laugh sometimes when I'm at Home Depot and I like have to check out with power tools and there's Gatorade and soda and junk food right there. And then I go to the post office and you can now buy snacks there. It's like, okay, it's like out of control. And if you're hungry, man, you're going to break.
And
There's
it's
so
expensive. It's expensive. I remember I'd run into Staples for like office supplies.
Oh,
And there's chocolate bars there. And it's a $3 Reese peanut butter cup.
oh yeah, you're
And
getting gouged.
I'll admit, I've bought it there before. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I've paid for like food on an airplane. I've paid for embarrassing ball. Anytime you go to a sporting event, you're gonna pay like $18 for a hot dog and a drink. If you're in the right environment, you're hungry enough, the vibes are right, you'll overpay for terrible food. We do this all the time. I know a lot of people probably can say that they've like done really good all week with their diet. They have a crazy Friday, they get home and they have crap food delivered because it's just easy. Managing stress is a big part of it, but we don't want to provoke our hunger by eating ultra processed food that does not fill us up and that triggers these, large reward responses in the brain. And any diet that is good at driving weight loss, even the diets I would never choose, are diets that are built on whole foods. And whole foods definitely are more satiating. And I don't want to say they tell our body, but in general, our body is not going to digest and absorb and assimilate them and experience that vanishing caloric density that we see with ultra processed foods. You eat a plate of food that your grandma would have prepared for you, you'll be fuller than if you grabbed a bunch of shit off the shelf and snacked on it. It's just a general, I think, truth about nutrition.
I recently had Dr. Spencer Nadolsky on. We talked a lot about food noise in that episode, and this has become a really common, popular topic. And I mean, to me now, I think it's at the very forefront of obesity, especially because of our understanding of GLP-1 agonist medications, which Spencer and I talked extensively about. And he's one of, I consider to be an expert on it. So is Dr. Crystal Guevara. Had Crystal on not too long ago. If you guys want those episodes, message me. I'll send them right to you. We can go deeper. I am of the belief, although I cannot cite specific evidence to this point, you may know, that if we can get someone for a period of time to eat more of that filling, like minimally processed food, that we can see improvement in satiety signals. Now, I think there's also a fairly genetic component to this stuff, and our modern environment hijacks the living hell of it. Spencer and I talk about that. But I am of the belief, do you have any evidence to support or potentially refute that if people give it enough time and reduce the amount of the ultra-processed stuff, that they can come back from the severity of the appetite dysregulation?
Yeah, I mean, I won't cite evidence, but let's cite causal reasons that might occur. The first and probably most obvious is like if I'm eating more whole foods, more minimally processed foods, fruits and vegetables, especially whole grains, less refined carbohydrates, like the sugary junk that's in baked goods and crap, the microbiome, the intestinal flora and fauna that make up your guts, for people who don't give a shit, when you eat something, you digest a lot of it, but some of it feeds the microbes that line your intestines. And if you eat a bunch of ultra processed stuff, your gut flora and fauna, like the actual the species and the microorganisms, will look very different than the gut of somebody who eats a more whole foods diet. So those are for sure changes that would definitely affect appetite signaling. Another thing that I think would happen, you would definitely have better blood sugar regulation. Whole foods, and especially foods high in fiber and protein, they tend to help with blood sugar management. Ultra processed foods tend to be almost devoid of fiber completely. So I think if you just said, hey, switch into more whole foods, you'll probably have a better gut and you'll probably have better management of your blood sugar. I think just those two things alone could long-term positively affect appetite. I do not have the research in front of me, but ultimately I think if people use that 80-20 rule. I think it's a good rule of thumb, not only because you want about 80% of your diet to be whole foods, but I think because if you go over 20, 30, 40% from ultra processed foods, that's where the appetite signaling starts to get really wrecked. And the average American gets like 60 to 70% of their calories from ultra processed foods.
And I'm pretty comfortable looking at this and thinking, all right, mechanistically, that makes sense, right? Even if you and I don't have a study at the top of our heads. And we've got to acknowledge that you and I are almost speaking in a vacuum here, as if it's as easy as the changes. We know that there are socio-demographic factors, access to foods. These things are all relevant, right? And that's not to just throw that stuff away and go, it's not. But at the very least, I mean, we've got to, at some point.
They're the hardest to rectify because they are pillars that are more affected by government and by policy and by income and by things that genuinely cannot be rectified nearly as quickly as the other stuff. So you're right. They matter tremendously. But the challenge we have is our individual locus of control is better when we aim it at the things we're talking about.
Yeah. And I don't find it's overly helpful when there's a faction of our fitness industry that anytime that, you say anything that resembles, internal locus of control or personal responsibility, then they start getting really loud and vicious and nasty. And it's like, I don't find that stuff very empowering or helpful. Yes, we realize that these things are an issue, but if you drown people in the odds and the why they can't do something, then they're far more likely to default, I believe, to an external locus of control and go, well, I can't change my circumstance. I am a victim of my circumstance. Foster a victim mentality around it, deflect any evidence or opportunity to then make changes. And I believe no matter the circumstance, everybody has some ability to influence it. The playing field's not level. And I'm much more of the camp that, okay, let's give people the tools, the way to do it, not drown them in the reasons why they can't. There's another fun quote, and I want you to explain this one to me because this popped up really recently. Quote, "The internet broke nutrition. One of the largest advocates for the carnivore diet is now pushing something called sugar fasting or the sugar diet. What the hell is this?"
Yeah. So I'm not gonna drag anybody out. This has been, I've seen this now all over the place. But I think this just stands to exemplify that I believe the internet gives us a platform that we can either use to promote largely helpful information, sensationalized information, bad information, who knows? But it's definitely strange to me that since social media has really accelerated our appetite for extremes, that we've seen things like an all meat diet. I don't believe that would have ever existed if it wasn't for social media. I genuinely do not believe that if humanity does not create this, which sounds so funny because any carnivore will tell you it's primal. But if we did not create social media, we would have never had the carnivore diet. It's the least fucking primal diet in the world. No human being ate only meat. I believe we know this inherently, but I think the performance art of internet dieting is so appealing to so many people that, hey, if I behave sensationally on the internet around my nutrition, I get way more attention than if I tell people to eat a balanced diet. And it's not lost on me the fact that this is quite literally a 180, an all meat diet. For somebody to be an advocate and a proponent of an all meat diet to then eat an all sugar only diet, like the opposite, a carb only diet, not just carbs, sugar, fruit juice, the opposite of carnivore. That to me encapsulates this idea that the more extreme you are about nutrition on the internet, the better it is for the business of being a nutritional authority on the internet. And that makes me kind of sad because I genuinely, based on everything I believe about nutrition, based on all of the people that I respect and that I have tried my best to learn from, the Alan Aragons of the world, the Lane Nortons of the world, the names that come to, there's so many names that I'm not naming, but these people have contributed so much good information, balanced information. You and I have consumed content from these people. And at no point did I ever think that it was a good idea to eat just one macro. But on
I
social media, hey, nice,
I
nice.
literally have Alan's book. I have Lane's book. I've got some Adam Bornstein. I was talking to him today. I've got The Hungry Brain by Stefan
DNA.
DNA. I've
Yes,
got
exactly.
Eat It by Jordan Syatt and Mike Vicante. You know, Josh Ellis's Lean and Strong. This is
So I really believe that those are these are the people in our space that have distilled, reasonable nutrition concepts for healthy eating to the masses down to the best level. I
Mhm.
consider myself a disciple of men like that who have done the work, have done the studying, and now that I'm scientifically literate, I can build upon that. But at no point in my nutritional education, and probably in yours either, did a single macronutrient dietary strategy ever make sense for anyone. And so when I see this, I've started to think this is performance art. This is
Mhm.
rage bait. This is performance art. This is just for clicks. Um, and I've gone so far down the carnivore diet rabbit hole, bro. Like I don't believe that diet is healthy for anyone. I think it is so unbelievably lazy to say, well, when you compare it to the way most Americans eat, it's like, okay, that's fucking fantastic. That's like saying, you know, I drove home, my car, exploded. I got my identity stolen. I tore my ACL, but hey, at least my wife wasn't cheating on me when I got home. It's like, dude, the standard American diet is the worst thing imaginable. And if clearing that bar is all it takes for a diet to be good, I'm sorry. That's crazy. And I honestly maybe even think that the carnivore diet might be worse than the standard American diet. It seems so unbelievably foolish based on everything I've seen about the cardiovascular literature. But I eat red meat. I just wouldn't eat only meat and animal stuff. That to me screams disordered eating. Like, I don't know. That's why I said the internet broke nutrition. I feel like when I look at that, that is fundamentally crazy disordered eating.
As you're talking about this in social media, I remember the snake diet. Do you remember that
Yes,
phenomena? I've
that guy
I've
is
met
an
him.
advocator of this shit.
I've
That
I've
guy.
I've met him because he's from where I'm from. He's a sniveling little weasel. That's all I'll say. Yeah,
Interesting.
he's an awkward little creature. But yes, I remember when he was gaining some attention for this stuff. And I remember that he would brag about his lack of education. I mean, I've never met someone in the industry who was so anti-education and proud of it, doubled out on that message. Anyway, enough about you
Uh,
could
we
you
we
launch.
all we all have insecurities about the education we do or don't have.
Hmm.
I do not think anti-intellectualism is a good thing. I think that is a slippery slope, and frankly, I think the carnivore diet is built on a fucking huge heap of anti-intellectualism.
Hmm.
It rejects a lot of what we believe about cardiovascular health and literature. It promotes, exclusion of obviously health promoting foods. And it like spits in the fucking obvious 200,000 year body of literature that shows human beings, Homo sapiens, were omnivorous creatures that ate a bunch of different shit.
They,
We have at like very little record of any Homo sapien only eating animal protein.
the anthropological record, human history is humans ate what they had access to that wasn't poisonous. And then the ones that, they figured out the poisonous shit because those people died and didn't reproduce by and large.
Yeah, it's really hard to reproduce when you eat something poisonous and die.
But humans will literally eat anything that is semi-nutritious, right? And
Yeah.
this is Stan Efferding and I were talking about this recently. It's one of the problems with the cherry-picked examples in the Blue Zone diet, where there's a whole bunch. We get into the details of what's wrong with this stuff, but even if you take it within, as if it were fact, the different areas have markedly different diets. The
Totally different.
the ones that were self-selected to be included tend to be more vegetarian based, but Mediterranean is still very different from Japanese diet versus Costa
Sure.
Rican diet. But then, of course, they excluded Iceland, and Iceland traditional diet is again very different than what we're seeing across the rest of them. But humans ate what they had access to.
And I think you can eat a high fat, high protein diet. I just cannot imagine omitting fruits and vegetables from my diet. Again, I go back to this way I look at the world. What is the largest, most beneficial thing I can eat that will promote health? Probably a fruit, probably a vegetable, probably a lean protein. What is the most likely to do the opposite? Probably alcohol, probably ultra processed food. Okay, over time, I want more daily food decisions in the good category, less in the bad. I feel if I took fruits and vegetables off the playing field, I would be eliminating like 20 to 40% of the most nutritious foods imaginable. And to me, that would just be like, all right, guys, we're going to go out there, we're going to play football, and we are going to run the ball on every play. We're not going to pass, run the ball on every play. But passing helps. We're running the ball on every play. We don't pass. I know passing helps. I know it's good. We're running the ball on every play because that's what I believe. There's no evidence of that ever helping anybody win anything. Doesn't matter. That's what I'm doing. I feel like that's crazy to take away half of the most nutrient-dense foods. And when I see people who were married to that and promoting that and making a lot of money off of that, flip to being able to eat nothing but sugar and promote that and make a lot of money off of that, I think it's fair to ask the question, how much of this is built on a house of cards? How much of this is just, phony baloney? And I don't know. There might be people who really benefit from a carnivore diet. I just think they'd benefit from that diet and like some strawberries or a banana.
2 quick thoughts. 1, I understand short-term why people feel better on a carnivore diet. Stan and I talked about this again. It probably relates to some sort of food intolerance, probably FODMAP that has gone
Totally
unidentified. Then someone gets on the idea, feels better because whatever unknown or multiple unknown things were just irritating the shit out of them. They're like, oh my God, I feel better. I can understand logically why someone draws a conclusion, this is better. It's then a big leap to go, this is the best thing and the healthiest thing. And it's the best and healthiest thing for everybody. Those are too far leaps.
Yeah.
But and again, we have issues with LDL cholesterol, the lack of fiber in the diet, those 2 things. And those are the things I thought of when you said, like, in the face of all the data we have about this stuff, those 2 things are dangerous, problematic things long-term.
Yeah, I can't think of a worse population than the United States overweight, under-muscled, over-fat, underactive American male population than that's the last people that need an all-meat diet. And I'm just like, that's who's fucking eating this shit up. That's who wants it. Cletus is fucking all over my comments telling me, oh, you beta soy boy cuck. You wouldn't look half as shitty if you tried the carnivore diet. And I'm like, listen, buddy, I promise, like, meat is really good. It's good protein. There's so many vitamins in it. I love it. But veggies can be good for you too. And that there is some, it's not like a cult, but like so many diets, there's really strict frameworks. And that's about as strict as it gets. And I would say, like, to the point you made about the discussion you had with Stan and how it can be an effective elimination diet, why not just
Initially.
Yeah, for sure. Initially, great caveat. Like, I know you're not allergic to like cold water fatty fish. I know you're probably not allergic to like lean poultry, and I know you're not allergic to tofu, and I know you're not allergic to fasting. There's a lot of ways to eliminate stuff from your diet other than like only eating ribeyes for a while. And like, I do get it. But again, we're lowering the bar now. We're like, okay, well, it's a good elimination diet and it's better than the standard American diet. Okay, well, so is not eating anything. So again, like, use cases are dwindling here. Logic says 200,000 years of eating like an omnivore makes sense. This does not make a lot of sense to me unless I'm trying to say something about who I am to other people with the way I fucking eat.
Take that further. Do you think choice of diet is a tribal signal? I mean, let's just go right at the vegans. Sorry, vegans.
How could it not be? How could it not be? In a world where the clothes you wear, the car you drive, the hat you might wear, the things you post, a lot of what we do says and signals about who we are. We want to be seen in the world as a certain type of person. I believe a lot of people who chose a vegan diet did it for health, did it for animal welfare. I also believe a lot of people did it to signal. And I frankly believe the carnivore diet exists as some kind of weird, like, social media orc born out of the frustration of being roasted by internet vegans. somewhere along the way, someone got so mad at a vegan online that they came up with this diet. Like, I don't know if that's the actual origin of the carnivore diet, but
It's the
if you
mirror image of it. It's
yeah, hey, why did it explode? When did it explode? Well, it seemed to explode when veganism proliferated on the internet. And it's like, well, again, I won't get political, but there is an ideological oppositional affiliation with people who tend to be vegan and people who tend to like carnivore. Do with that what you will. I won't elaborate. But I do believe identity is important. Being seen for who you are is important. But I don't believe wanting to make your diet a concrete part of your identity will fulfill your health or, your life. There's other things that are way more important than how you eat. And I think that it might be a little tribal, looking for a community, looking for belonging. I think that's a huge piece of it.
I think we have a lot of examples. Paleo dieting and its rise within the CrossFit community, because obviously CrossFit had a very strong tribal identity. One of the reasons why it was successful. I certainly think the proliferation of keto was very evangelical, where we all have that office worker or friend or whatever who is, and my theory is like trying to support their insecure belief in this dietary ideology by evangelizing it to other people and getting other people to adopt it.
For sure.
And that's why I use the word evangelize very deliberately, because if more people adopt this ideology and become part of the tribe, that it reinforces my shaky belief in this thing that I may see flaws in, but I'm desperately trying to buy into.
You nail it. And I think that's a great word. I'm going to add it to my vocabulary because I should use it more. I don't know why I've never used that word in writing or in speaking. It's just a phenomenal verb to just perfect encapsulates the way these people communicate. There's something else that is basically the opposite of evangelizing, and it would be demonizing. And what many people do who are part of these tribal diet camps, they don't just demonize other diets. They demonize all of the science that says their diet sucks. I don't believe that because that data was paid for by vegans. I don't believe that because so there's a tremendous need to demonize all other diets. And if you study cults, if you study religion, if you study, extremist politics, you'll see that not only is evangelism necessary, but demonization of the alternatives, demonization of the outgroups is integral.
Stole the word from me, is identifying in-group versus out-group dynamics and conflict and identity. If that's at the heart of this, and you're right, like there is at least partially a dynamic of this between, maybe the more militant and ideological vegans and let's call them the militant and ideological carnivores.
For sure. And last thing I'll pull on a little bit, and this is just to knock myself down a peg, because I'm in no position to just pick on people who eat a diet that, they learned about on the internet. I don't know why they chose it. But one thing I think a ton of us do, no matter how we pursue our health, and this is a big reason why I think so many people who are not health initiated are struggling to connect with us. You and I probably have the audiences that we have because we're different, and we make people feel like, hey, this guy's not like everybody else. He has a brain. He writes thoughtful things. He's not just some meathead, like I really believe that people like you and I, because there is a lot of coaching history and quite a bit of wisdom that we can offer that might click with them. But I think when people from outside of fitness look inside, whether they see carnivores or vegans or people like you and I or really fit people, they feel like there's a lot of moral superiority there. Those people might think they're better than me. Those people might think I'm lesser than them. And you're one of the best voices at really capturing that is not how we feel. We want you here. We want to support you. We're not watching, but I think not people like you and I, not people who come on this show, honestly, but there are a lot of people in our space who derive tremendous moral superiority from being dedicated to their diet, being dedicated to their fitness. And I'll just say this, one thing that having a kid has really taught me is that And I knew this in my heart all along, but as a young guy, we talk to our clients with kids and we tell them, you still got it. You'll figure it out.
Hmm.
And I have maintained my routine. I'm still in pretty good shape. I've stayed fit. And I could look at all those people and say, hey, I did it. Look, my kid's 8 months old. I'm not fat. I stayed on my routine. You lied. I was tired. I did it. Hell no. I look at all of them and I go, I understand it now. It is a lot harder. I made it work, but I wouldn't want it to be this hard for anyone. And I'm not any better than anybody just because I'm on my diet and I'm on my routine. And I do think if collectively we could lower this sense of superiority, like this is the best way to train, this is the best way to eat, and instead be like, this is what the evidence by and large tells us is going to work for a lot of people. These are the options. There's a ton. We gotta pick one that doesn't suck. That would be a lot more helpful than what I think our industry is so often guilty of doing.
That's why I always go to, at least I understand why people may feel better. I mean, here's another example. And I don't necessarily agree with this, as the carnivore diet being healthier, but if someone goes from eating a massive overabundance of calories and then they go switch straight carnivore, it's all of a sudden, especially for a bigger dude, very hard to eat even in calorie maintenance on strictly that. So all of a sudden someone starts losing body fat. And if you lose 5 to 10% of your body fat, all of a sudden you've seen some pretty dramatic improvements in your health markers. Now, there's some downstream shit. Again, LDL cholesterol, that's going to be bad news. But immediately we may see some health improvements. So I can empathize with why someone would believe it's healthier, but there are some serious problems that we highlighted.
I just want that dude to be able to have a banana. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Like, I want that dude to be, I'm going to be like, hey, bro, I love that you're on this diet and losing weight. That will be healthier for you. Mm. You're not going to lose any points from me if you have a banana or an avocado with that steak. You know, get some carbs. It's going to be good for you.
Well, you don't have to worry about me ever going a carnivore, so all good there. Everybody can find you at danny.matranga on Instagram. Where else do you want them to go to dig into more of your media?
That's probably good. YouTube, it's cool. I'm messing around on there. If you want some more long form stuff that's in the gym that might be helpful for you. But honestly, Instagram's a great place.
I'd say go check out your threads too. You're riffing pretty hard on threads these days, which has been quite entertaining. So
yeah, it's a good platform if you, it's like Twitter was. It's a wild west. You might catch a stray, but it's fun.
I've seen more dumb shit on Twitter. On threads in the last little while. I mean, I've never seen a platform with so much just obvious rage bait, but it's glorious if you want to go have fun with it. I've got a few posts on my social media recently where it's my reply to something really stupid.
Yes.
And they're entertaining to say the least. So go have some fun. Go dig into what Danny's doing. Danny, it's great to have you back. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. Everybody, stay tuned. I got lots more good stuff coming up for you guys.